Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
Hi, I'm George Luna.
I'm Brittany Pacheco,
And I'm Frank Cooper.
and we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to another edition of the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss the season 1 finale of the Marvel series Loki. The final episode is entitled For All Time, Always. And yes, I said season finale because as we learned, there will be a season 2. Before we break down this episode piece by piece, let's go around the room and see what everyone thought of the 6th and final episode of season 1. I'm going to start with George. What did you think about the finale, George?
I loved it. I know we kind of talked before, but about like y'all's thoughts. But I actually thought it was great. Jonathan Majors' acting saved this episode, and just him being introduced was the greatest part of this whole finale. And I'm excited for season 2. That's all I can say.
Brittany, what about you?
I really did enjoy it. I just think it was slow. Like it kind of dragged on for me. It's just like let's get to the point, y'all. Come on, too many long pauses and dramatic looks and things like that. But yes, with the introduction of Jonathan Majors, I had never seen him before because I didn't watch Lovecraft Country like George did and John. But apparently, two very different characters, play by the same person. So that was really cool. But yeah, when we dive more into it, I'll point out some little details about this episode. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait for season 2 of Loki. Frank, what were your thoughts?
I'm with you on the same tip, Brittany. I thought it was kind of slow for it to be a season finale. I thought it would be more action packed and more stressful. It was stressful, but it was very monotone in a sense. I'm glad it's a season 2 to hopefully extend more of this universe and better explain what's going on. But the finale left me unsatisfied for now. If it's connected to Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and other movies, my opinion might change. But Jonathan Majors did a great job. I didn't watch Lovecraft Country either, but his zany, enthusiastic villainy, I guess, / good character, depending on what timeline you're talking about. I thought he did a great job of like conveying that role.
Yeah, I it's a cliffhanger for a season finale, so that was interesting. But I agree with George. To me, the episode felt like the shortest episode of the season. To me, it went by pretty fast. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was technically. I think they were all kind of around the same time, like 45 minutes or so. But yeah, I really liked it. I was surprised by the season 2 because I thought it was going to lead into the movies, which, I mean, I feel like it's going to lead into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which comes out in March. And it's also written by Michael Waldron, who wrote Loki. So I think there will be it'll continue in that movie before we get to season 2. I doubt season 2 is going to come out before Doctor Strange. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I think this was probably the strongest of the 3 series that we've seen so far. But I think they're all pretty close. I don't think there's like one that's like head and shoulders above, So I guess I'll ask y'all, what do y'all think about ranking the 3 Marvel series, WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki? How would y'all rank those 3 so far? George, what's your rankings for those?
My ranking is going to be Loki number 1, WandaVision 2, and Falcon Winter Soldier 3.
Okay.
And they're all great shows, but I think just like in the grand scope of how they're going to affect things in the MCU, that's why they're ranked at that in those orders.
I agree. Okay. Brittany, what about you? What's your rankings for those shows?
Yeah, I'm totally with George. Same exact rankings: Loki 1, WandaVision 2, and Falcon and Winter Soldier 3. Just because as we've previously discussed all these shows before, in fact, with Falcon and Winter Soldier, it was just kind of the weak storyline of the Flag Smashers. WandaVision was just so creative with the fact that every decade was being showcased in their show, and you ultimately got to that final story about what happened. And then with this show, I mean, how this show is going to impact Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and then of course WandaVision, hello. Wanda obviously will be in Doctor Strange. So it's all going to be connected. I'm very much looking forward to what's in store for the movies. Frank, what's your rankings for the MCU shows?
I got Winter Soldier 1 because of the historical racial implementation they had in the show. The first Black Captain America on screen, I thought was monumental for me. And Marvel really diving into that and not being afraid to tackle that issue, that meant a lot to me as a Black man, as a fan in general. Loki number 2, distant number 2, because again, I'm very skeptical of the time and alternate reality timeline thing. Like, I don't want them to fuck it up. I'm just really, really unsure about it right now. And 3, WandaVision. WandaVision was great. The first couple episodes kind of slowed for me, but it picked up mid-season going towards the end. It actually made me care about what's going to happen in Captain Marvel Part 2 with new characters being introduced, things of that nature. So that's my ranking.
What about you, Justin? What's your ranking?
No, it's the same thing what George said. I think
it.
Loki, Falcon Winter Soldier, WandaVision. But like I said, I think they're all pretty tightly packed. Like, I don't think there's one that's like way far above the other. Let's get into the episode. So we open with, we're kind of in like a universe or a multiversal time loop. We see all these like quotes from famous people. We hear character quotes from various Marvel characters, and we get quotes from famous people like Nelson Mandela and Greta Thunberg. That was kind of an odd opening, I thought. Then we see Loki and Sylvie. They're talking at the castle, which we learn is called the Citadel at the End of Time. Miss Minutes welcomes them inside, and she mentions the character He Who Remains. That's apparently the person who's behind all of this. He is apparently impressed with Loki and Sylvie. He wants to make a deal with them that will send them back to the timeline in a way that won't interfere with the TVA. So I thought the Miss Minutes stuff was pretty good. I saw a headline somewhere today that said that there was supposed to be there was a fight scene with Miss Minutes that was cut out of the show, which I think
really,
I wish we could see that because that sounds pretty interesting. I don't know who she would be fighting. I guess Sylvie and Loki. I don't know, unless there's someone else. Like,
so
that would have been hilarious.
Let me say, with the whole Miss Minutes appearance, I mean, you can kind of tell that something was about to pop up as they were walking down that hallway in the Citadel. And when she popped up, I was like, oh shit, George called it. You know, she's the one who's behind it all. And I'm like, that's just crazy.
That's what I thought too. I was like, oh, so the like cutesy, character is the one who's in charge of that. Would have been like a very like if Mickey Mouse had a heel turn or something,
I thought the same thing, and I was like, "Wow, is this really the villain?" Like, I was like, "This is kind of fucking funny." At the same time, I'm very disappointed if this is what happens. Mm-hmm. And then, like, seconds later, we get to see Kang, which was not Kang, it's He Who Remains.
Yeah, they never call him Kang, but
they never call him Kang.
Right.
We know who he really is.
Yeah, but before we get to Kang, I just want to mention I really enjoyed the part where Miss Minutes is talking to Loki, and she basically offers him everything. She says, you can have a win over those self-righteous Avengers from 2012. You can kill Thanos. You can have the Infinity Gauntlet, the Throne of Asgard. And then she offers Sylvie just a lifetime of happy memories. And she's basically like, hey, 2 Lokis in the same timeline, which I think would be an excellent name for an episode. 2 Lokis, 1 timeline. That would be an awesome show. Some of y'all will get that. Some maybe won't.
Yeah.
They can all have it together. Basically, they can write their own destiny. So then that's what Loki says. He says, "No, we write our own destiny." And Miss Minutes is like, "Okay, good luck with that." Then we see Miss Minutes meeting with Renslayer, and she finally is getting her those files. But then, George, I agree with you here. Like, it seems like Miss Minutes is the villain still because Renslayer's like, "Hey, where are those files that I would needed?" She's like, "Oh, I'm getting them to you now." And didn't y'all feel like she was like?
She was definitely. Did you notice like her face, like how she's animated, the eyes, like
right.
it just makes her look so suspicious. And she's like, "Yeah, I know these aren't the files you wanted, but it's the ones I need you to like look at." And I talked to Frank like off on the phone about this, that I think Miss Minutes is trying to guide her to another version of Kang or someone else. Like, and that's where she's going to look for He Who Remains or Kang or whatever variant.
Well, I'll save this for a second. I'll ask this question a little bit. So we find out that Loki and Sylvie they're searching for He Who Remains, and lo and behold, it's Jonathan Majors as Kang. Although they don't, like I said, they don't say Kang. I was really surprised he was in this show because he's going to be the villain in Ant-Man into Quantum Mania or something.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Quantum Solace, but that's a Bond movie. Sorry.
Yeah. I think people actually will see this movie. You know, they announced he was going to be the villain in that movie not too long ago. And, you know, he was asked recently, someone said, "Are you going to be in Loki?" And he's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And it seemed believable, but you know, he was obviously lying about that, which that's what these actors do all the time because of spoilers. But I was very surprised he was in the show. And I like you, Brittany, I'm not super familiar with him. I knew him from the poster of Lovecraft Country, but I've never watched the show. But I thought he was awesome. The way he was playing this like evil but kind of silly, goofy character. Like I thought it was fun to watch, and I thought the acting in the show was. I mean, there weren't as many characters in the show as the other shows, but I think the acting in this show was a little bit better than those other shows. All the characters who had big parts like really like knocked it out of the park. So
what I will say with Jonathan Majors, him being interviewed about if he was going to be in Loki, and he's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." That clearly was another variant of Jonathan Majors. So
yeah, there you go. True.
And that comes into full circle with this episode, of course. But yeah, no, I agree. I think he did great. It was so interesting to see him kind of just embody this what immediately I thought, of course, was Kang the Conqueror. And it's like, why is he so like jolly and so like, you know, just upbeat and, you know, like, wow, he really must be that evil if he really takes, you know, pleasure in all of this. But then to jumping ahead, when what he's offering to Loki and Sylvie, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but it was just like just how animated he was, but then it was just like very dark at the same time. And I'm like, that takes a really great actor to be able to, you know, channel both those type of emotions or just that thought process into one. I can't wait to see him in is it Ant-Man, and then I'm sure we'll see him again in Doctor Strange. Frank, you know, you obviously are the more comic, you know, book guru out of a lot of us. I mean, Kang the Conqueror is supposed to be this real evil dude. I mean, do you think Jonathan Majors will deliver?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he will. The show version of him is completely different from the comic book version of him, because he's more of like an adjacent celestial in the comic books.
Okay.
The take that they're taking with him in this show is that there's many versions of him, and we don't know which one is the bad version, which was the good version. So this is completely new to me as far as this adaptation of him. But as far as the role itself, I was hooked on the character. And the show, that episode is basically about him. You know, like George said on the conversation we had last night. So this is going to be a new ride for me, as it is for the three of y'all. I have no idea what to expect. From the rooms I've read, I heard that he might make an appearance in Spider-Man as well. So we shall see what this character brings to the MCU.
Oh, I was telling Frank yesterday that like starting from here on out in all the movies, I think there's going to be little Easter eggs of Kang and stuff in the movies, and I think we have to keep an eye out for it. Like we saw with the building, the old Avengers Tower at Kang, I think a lot of stuff is going to start changing in all of these movies now.
Yeah, that for sure makes sense.
I think he's meant to be the next big bad for
sure
MCU.
Definitely.
And it kind of plays into the fact that Marvel, you know, they said a while back that, you know, the Infinity Saga was like a 20 movie, you know, extravaganza, right? So they were saying, but going forward, we're going to have these little like mini versions of it where it's going to be a 5-6 movie grouping that will have a story that will be a storyline that will be carried out. So that would make sense if he's in Spider-Man. We know he's going to be in Ant-Man. It seems like he'll be referenced in Doctor Strange, if not in the movie. So, and then obviously season 2 of Loki, which I assume will come, the next couple of years. So, yeah, I think Jonathan Majors is going to be in our lives for a while as this character, and I think that's I think it's interesting to see how he plays the character. Is he going to be that, the person we saw in this episode, or is he going to be a more evil, like ruthless conqueror, which I know is moniker is King the Conqueror in the comics. It's going to be interesting to see how the character is played, because I don't see this guy that we see in this episode as being the big bad of the MCU.
Yeah.
But who knows what the variant, like he warns them of all these variants that are going to be unleashed. I don't know. I'm interested to see how he plays the character.
No, that's what I was telling Frank yesterday too. With like, I told him we're gonna see Jonathan Majors like really get to act as different variants of this character, because they're all gonna be like different personalities, I think, and he's gonna get to really show his range as an actor coming up in the rest of this whole MCU universe now.
What I was gonna kind of relate it to, granted it's not exactly the same, but James McAvoy, when he was in the movie Split, that character in one person had, multiple personalities, and he on screen displayed, I think, just like a handful of those multiple personalities as just one character. So I think for Jonathan Majors to maybe physically be the conqueror, he who remains, and whatever other variants they choose to show us, I mean, this is probably really gonna, start his career even more so than Lovecraft Country. I don't know why I can't say that. LCC. And I'm excited just to see what, he has to offer, and just what range of emotion and acting that he's going to deliver to us, because the fact that like Thanos was just like the big bad, right? This is like hopefully next level, Thanos, and I'm very excited to see again, Jonathan Majors as the new big bad.
Yeah, and if he controls time, then he's going to be more
Mhm.
powerful than Thanos. I'm sorry, Frank. What were you going to say?
Yeah.
No, and like he's a descendant of Nathaniel Richards, which is Reed Richards' father. So
Okay,
Ooh.
so that's the whole scientist backstory. I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
so this to play a role in Fantastic Four, maybe.
Okay.
There was a comic book where he picked Evan Senor to be his heir. Evan Senor is Apocalypse. He's the the world's first mutant back in the Egyptian days. So this character, you can do a lot with this character depending on what route they want to go. I mean, you can have one timeline of King the Conqueror, ruling Egypt and going through time, and like you can have another timeline of him, messing with the Fantastic Four, because he's also a Fantastic Four villain as well. So this man was Ross protected this character.
So real quick, some various kings from the comics do include, as Frank just said, Nathaniel Richards, Immortus, Ramatut, and Iron Lad. So I mean, I don't know a lot about these different, versions of Kang from the comic books, but if we're gonna see any number of what I just mentioned, that's gonna be really interesting to see, especially with what Frank just mentioned about the kind of a apocalypse, first mutant kind of style, and that's going to be interesting. But what I really did appreciate in this episode, because I think we talked about it for episode 5, there was this whole explanation of getting through Eliath and time and all this other stuff. I literally did not follow anything that was conveyed, but with He Who Remains explained about how there was a variant of himself in the 31st century who was a scientist and discovered that there were multiple universes that were like basically one stacked on top of each other, and they were all kind of like working towards the same thing, and then ultimately thus started the multiverse war. And this is basically how we know that there's different variants and different timelines, and his whole idea was to conquer and put all into one timeline, and then just delete those other variants who I guess would ruin the timeline. But I thought it was a really good
Yeah.
explanation, especially with the visuals.
Yeah, the visual was cool. The animation or claymation or whatever it was, that was pretty cool. I think the one thing about this show, and I was going to say this for the end, but I'm going to throw this in now. The one thing that I'm kind of disappointed in this show is I was hoping that we would kind of get. I was hoping that the timeline would be fixed, or we wouldn't have variants of characters. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's a cool idea, but I also kind of what Frank I think was alluding to earlier about wonder if they're going to mess it up. I think it makes things kind of messy because it makes it confusing for me. I thought they were going to kind of simplify it to where there's only one Loki. There's only one. Now there might be there might be 3 Spider-Man in the next Spider-Man movie, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought we weren't going to have to deal with the word variant except for in real life with COVID or whatever. But yep,
He went there, folks. He
yep.
went there.
No, that's just my kind of one complaint with the show is I was just hoping it was like, let's streamline this into one timeline and kind of fix things. But that's they're going to fix it in other ways with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and everything else. So.
Is it like how you feel about the word Sith in Star Wars? You don't like
No,
that. You like dark.
No. It's just stupid. Sith is dumb. We didn't need it. We didn't need that word.
Okay.
So we see Mobius. He goes to Renslayer's office to talk with her, and he's basically saying like, why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, we're all variants. Like, why were our lives stolen? And it seems like she really believes in the mission, whatever the mission is, right? And then we see right after that, we're taken to Fremont, Ohio in 2018, which I thought the time was interesting because that's right around like Infinity War in-game time, right? The TVA officers are there and they capture Renslayer, and she's a school teacher. And she knows nothing about this. So I guess and this is my question to y'all. Is she a variant? The one the Renslayer that we've seen in the show? Or was her life, I mean, was she just, I guess that's a variant. She was stolen and taken to the TVA. Like, what did y'all make of that part of the show?
I think she was a variant, but as a teacher, what the hell did she do to get snatched out of her own timeline?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I didn't understand like what, yeah.
What if she survived the snap or something?
Yeah.
And she wasn't supposed to. That could have been one right there.
But how she would have patrolled that?
Yeah,
I don't.
But still, it doesn't make sense.
But to me, it seems like Renslayer has some kind of recollection of who she was, right? Because the fact that she had the pin that said, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Mobius had like challenged her on something she had said about the fact that they're variants and this and that, what have you. And he's like, well, you're about to find out, like, or I forgot exactly what he says, but then it flashes to the Ohio thing. Now I made the gesture like to my heart or whatever for Ohio, because after watching Black Widow, I'm never going to like think of Ohio the same way ever again. Natasha Romanoff.
Okay. Listen, Ohio is so bad. LeBron left there twice. Okay. Like, I've been to Ohio. It's miserable. Like, no kidding. At like 4:30 in the afternoon, it's cold and dark in the fall. No one wants to live in Ohio.
That justifies taking, Renslayer, which actually that's not even her name. Like in the diploma on the back is like Rebecca. Yeah. What is it? I'm gonna pull it up right here. It's like Rebecca Tourmine or something like that. She's either a teacher or a principal at this school, and
I fully expect to see Baker Mayfield in season 2 of Loki. They're going to take him.
Oh my God.
He's in Cleveland. Okay. Like, he's there.
Well, he did make it to the second round, so
that's true. Yeah.
Something that he could be a variant for, like, purposely getting the Browns to the second round.
That's true. I think Baker Mayfield is a variant of Johnny Manziel. Like, he's like the best version of Johnny Manziel. He's like the best variant that could ever exist of Johnny Manziel. That's a hot take right there. And we should clip this out and send this to everyone because that's fucking brilliant. I just thought of that. So back to the show.
You should make a gallery for it.
Hey, I don't love sports as much as I used to, but it still comes out from time to time. I thought this next part was pretty cool. We're back in the office with Loki and Sylvie and Kang, or with He Who Remains. And He Who Remains has a written transcript on his desk of everything that's going to happen. And he basically tells him, he's like, look, he's like, y'all had this incredible journey, but I'm the one who paved the way for it. So I was waiting here for you.
Because this confused me. Like, he knew to a certain extent what they were going to say and what they were going to do. How did he know that? And what changed?
Here's the thing that I have. I think since he transcends all timelines, I think he knew everything to that point. And I think the minute that he didn't know what was going to happen, I think that's when Renslayer went back in time to warrant another Kang, which I think fucked everything up.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, because there is one point where he's like we've transcended or crossed something, and it looked like his citadel was, you know, either crossing the sacred timeline, because then you started seeing it branch out, you know, ever so slightly. And
Yep.
so then he no longer knew what was going to happen because of the very fact that, you know, the Nexus events were happening and what have you. So yeah, I was a little confused about that too, George, about you know,
Because everything started branching before Sylvie killed him.
yes.
Right.
So
Right.
it would make sense if Frank's theory is right, because we don't know what time that Renslayer went back in time, or where the hell she went, but she
Yeah.
could have changed something.
So don't
Right.
y'all think that there was a variant, because in the comics, Renslayer and Kang are like romantically tied
Yeah.
together, right? So so maybe there was like a variant of Kang that like was actually like kind of a good guy or something, and like that's why she tells Mobius, she's like, I'm going in search of free will.
Yeah.
You know,
I
maybe
thought it would have been this guy. This guy seemed kind of nice. Like, he was actually like trying to help Loki and Sylvie to like keep everything in order.
Or she went to go look for the Conqueror, that way he could come and do his thing. You know, if she wants to keep things in order, I mean, wouldn't you want to align yourself with someone who wants the same? So
And I think the Conqueror she found was the worst version of that King possible.
Yep.
yeah, I agree.
right.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, she does take off. You think she's going to prune Mobius when he comes and tries to attack her, and she uses a temp pad, and probably with whatever information Miss Minutes gave her, because Miss Minutes had said, like, you know, he thinks that this information is more useful to you. So that's probably what it is. Like, she's you know, off to go find a variant, and it's probably the worst variant of Kang that we're gonna get.
Yeah, and then we get to the part that Brittany you described earlier, where he talks about how he's, you know, from the 31st century, he lived on Earth and he discovered the timelines and variants and all this stuff. And then a war broke out, and basically he won this multiversal war because he had the help of Eliath, which I thought we left him in the last episode, but apparently not. And he says that he's lived 1,000,000 lifetimes, and that the TVA is the only way that it works. So then he gives Sylvie and Loki the two options. He basically tells him, he's like, look, he's like, I'm older than you think. I'm looking for someone to take my spot. And it just so happened that the person who's going to take my spot came in too, meaning the two Lokis. He said the two options are, you can kill him and the sacred timeline is exposed, leading to another multiversal war, or they can simply take his spot, and return the TVA as benevolent rulers. Here's where it gets interesting. Now, I like this part, because then he said, we're all villains here. You know, like, none of us are like, you know, we're not good guys. So you see that Sylvie and Loki battle over what they think is right. You know, and I thought it was a pretty good scene, but I could also see why, like, Brittany, maybe from your perspective, you said that you thought it dragged out. Did you think this scene dragged out too long, or?
No, it wasn't this scene, because at this point we were finally getting information about who He Who Remains is, and the multiverse war, et cetera, et cetera. It was everything that was leading up to the point where they met He Who Remains. That all that was just dragged out, like all the slow walking. And I was like, I feel like I'm, you know, reading. This is the weird correlation. I felt like I was rereading Lord of the Rings, because there's only so many words and so many ways one can describe walking. This was like, this is too damn slow. Get to the point. The sitting and talking, you know, with Kang or He Who Remains was a little much, but we were getting that valuable information that obviously is going to go into the other movies. But I was really very perturbed at like how, Sylvie wasn't even wanting to like pause and think about it in a way. I was really surprised with Loki, himself, because he's totally changed directions. You'd think he'd be the one to say, I want to rule and take over, but he actually has some sort of, empathy for the variants, and how ultimately he told Sylvie he just wants her to be okay. Like that's all he wants for her.
Yes, there's a really great quote. This kind of resolves their fight. He tells her, he's like, "You can't trust, and I can't be trusted." I thought that was a pretty clever, quote.
It was great. But then she kisses him, and I was just like, oh, I remember seeing somewhere on Twitter someone had said, if Loki and Sylvie don't kiss, then what was the point? And I'm just like, ew.
But okay, the next part right after the kiss, though, what I don't understand, how does she send him back to the TVA? Did she have the Tim pad? I didn't.
It was the watch thing that
Okay.
He Who Remains had on, and he took it off, slid it across the desk. And it shows in the next scene after he's back in the TVA, like she's holding on to it and she had rolled her thumb across it.
I guess I didn't understand that could do that. And I mean, how did she know that she wasn't just going to like
That's exactly
kill
what I was
Loki?
thinking
Like,
today.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, how did she know to send him to a TVA? And I think that's what happens, that like possibly she sent them to the wrong timeline, and that's why Mobius doesn't recognize him.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's one thing, one way. I think the other thing is like Renslayer went, advised Kang that something was happening in their timeline and that he could take over, and then that's why we only see the statue of Kang in the end scene, and no one remembers anything. So he probably wipes everyone's memory again. So it's either one of those two.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because when Mobius doesn't know who Loki is, that's such a huge moment in the show. You're like, oh my god! So now, like, what's going on? And that's the cliffhanger ending. That's the end of the episode. And like I said, I saw the news that there was going to be a season 2 before I saw that there was going to be, before I saw the episode. And so I definitely get why they had to put a post credit or a mid credit stamp of Loki will return in season 2. So I thought that was a cool touch to actually do it in the paperwork style that we've seen all the episodes end.
Yeah,
I was disappointed that there wasn't like an actual scene.
I think because there was a mid credit. Was it last episode or episode 4?
It was
4.
Episode 4.
Episode 4. No.
Well, that was when that's when we saw the other Lokis, when he was in the void.
So I think each one of the 3 shows only had one mid-credit or post-credit scene, I believe. Yeah. So maybe that's something they want to do. It doesn't have to be the last episode, I guess. So that's the episode. So what do you obviously, like, I guess next week they're going to have a Marvel Studios assembled Loki season 1. So I guess we'll find out more about that next week. I'm not sure if it'll be Wednesday or Friday, but that's what's coming up next. And obviously we know What If is coming on August 11th, but I guess, what are y'all's final thoughts on Loki season 1?
I really did enjoy it. I loved how it picked up exactly from what we saw in Infinity War, Endgame, whatever it was, Endgame, right?
Yeah.
But even the beginning of this episode, we talked briefly about it, how there's like different quotes from the different characters in past movies. The song itself was the same song that Peggy Carter and Steve, danced to, and back in the day, if you will. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch. So I guess all that was just symbolizing like the different, timelines that have existed, or maybe just that same one timeline that existed before the Nexus event that is occurring. I think cinematically overall, I mean, this show has looked amazing. The score has been amazing. I really love just the direction that they took this to. I definitely just wanted more. Even though we are getting a season 2, and I did say this, that I did hope that they were going to have a season 2, but just a little hints here and there, of course, of Easter eggs. I don't know if you guys caught this, but during in the intro when Neil Armstrong's quote of "one small step for man," you could actually see the Quinjet in the on the screen that was used in Endgame. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool nod,
Yeah.
to back then. So yeah, like Marvel does things very well, but I share Frank's concern about just being able to explain everything in a way that it's going to make sense and just play out well. Because I think even with Endgame, we were all kind of like still confused about, Steve Rogers having gone back in time and all this other stuff. And it's just like either eliminate it altogether or really like spell it out for those of us that are not like physicists and things like that.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So George, what's your kind of final thoughts for Loki season 1?
Oh, I think season 1 was solid. I wish there was a lot more episodes. There's a lot of explanations that like questions that need to be answered, and I guess we're gonna find out in season 2. It sucks that we have to wait that long, but overall, like cinematically, it's the best show that they've done so far. Every episode like felt like a movie. Like it's unreal. I think the reason I like this show the most is because I know how much this is going to affect every other like movie, every other show. It's because this is in like for the long term, and I think it's amazing how Marvel plans all this shit. Even though sometimes like when it comes to time travel stuff, like Frank says, that shit can get confusing. But I think they've had plenty of time to like plan this out, and I think they're gonna do it in a tasteful way, hopefully, and all this stuff is gonna work out and it's gonna pay out in the end once we're like, holy shit, like whatever movie we're gonna get in the long term, like for the next Avengers movie or whatever that's gonna be.
Yeah, I do wonder what the next Avengers movie is going to be. If it's going to be like a Young Avengers or I don't know, the leftover Avengers. I'm not really sure who's going to be
The
in charge.
leftover
Yeah,
Thor's gonna come back with the Revengers. Just saying.
Revengers.
I
maybe.
mean, Loki's still around, and we know Valkyrie's still around. She's king of Asgard, so they'll come back.
Yeah.
They'll come back.
So Frank, what's your final thoughts for Loki season 1?
I mean, I love Tom Hiddleston. He's one of my favorite actors in the universe, MCU. I thought initially the story was pretty good. Again, like I agree with George about it being, playing huge. It's going to be a huge impact to the MCU. That's why I'm nervous because when you do time, and I feel like this whole phase coming up is going to be time traveling, multiverse type shit, and it leaves room for a lot of plot holes, which I'm kind of nervous about. I didn't like how short the episodes were. I don't like the fact that the season finale was just very blah to me. Like I like the action, I like the dialogue, but like Brittany said, the dialogue was very spacey in the finale. It was pretty fast. It was pretty, smart and very intellectual in the previous episodes. This one was kind of like, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I am curious to see how Kang is portrayed in the MCU, but I'm kind of nervous about about season 2 and in the MCU phase 4, to be honest.
For a series that was very cinematic, and I agree with you, George. It did feel like every week was a movie. It felt like it was an event. The ending was very much a TV show cliffhanger. It was a very much like, hey, we're at the end of the season. We'll see you next fall whenever we come back. That's the way I felt. There was no real finality to the finale. But I love the show. I think, like I said, I think it was the best of the 3 shows, even though it's pretty close. Tom Hiddleston, yeah, he's awesome. He's, I mean, it's really hard to pick who is the best actor at playing their character, but like he's right there with, Hemsworth and Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. and those actors. Like he's definitely in that group. And I mean, the thing about Marvel is like they're all so freaking good that it's like it's impossible to try to like pick who you think is better. It's really just your personal preference in the character or whatever. Yeah, I think it was a great show. I'm looking forward to season 2, whenever that's going to be. Like we've talked about previous weeks, they've got a lot of shows coming. So I don't know if it's going to jump in line because there's so many other shows and movies and things that are on the way. So
George, I think you said when we talked yesterday, and exchanging memes, those were great, by the way. I think you said that the season 2 of Loki begins filming in
I mean,
January.
January. That's what the rumors say. So
Okay.
yeah, hopefully we'll get
Okay.
it before, like, fall 2022, like before. I don't know, before
Fingers
Ant-Man
crossed.
probably. Yeah.
Fingers crossed, because we need some Loki in our lives. No, and I think ultimately, if we do get a movie where, and again, this is from George and my conversation, where we have Doctor Strange, Wanda, and Loki in the same, movie, and they're all
That'd be
fighting
crazy.
the same, big bad, like that'd be so awesome. It's just gonna be so great, because now think about it. Doctor Strange's got to deal with Loki having fucked up the timeline, and then Wanda fucking up reality. So like, there's just a lot that's gonna be going on.
I'd like to see Wanda as the villain for the
Yeah.
movie. Because I
Yeah.
don't think it's gonna be Kang, and it's probably gonna be someone else. But I'd love to see Wanda be the villain. That would be awesome.
Are we
But
finally
she's
gonna
also
get
strong.
Mephisto? Are we gonna get Mephisto at any point?
Probably not, but we can dream.
So
Very
that
well.
does it for Loki season 1. But before we go, I want to talk about What If. That's the next series that's coming up. Like I said, next week I bet there's going to be an episode of the Marvel Studios assembled the kind of the making of Loki season 1. But the next new series we're going to get is What If. It starts August 11th, and last week the trailer dropped. I believe it was last week. I was blown away by the trailer. I just wanted to kind of throw some things out here. I've been trying to figure out like how many episodes and all that kind of stuff, and it looks like there's going to be 10 episodes of this show. So that's what I've discovered. But then I've also seen 11 episodes another place. So it's also interesting. I believe that every actor from the MCU, minus Chris Evans and maybe Robert Downey Jr., because he's not credited, is returning to do the voiceover work for their character. That includes Chadwick Boseman. Apparently, he recorded his Black Panther stuff before his death in, I guess, August of last year or September or whenever he passed.
Yeah, he did.
We've all seen the trailer for What If, and I mean, I think we're all pretty impressed by it. But
Mhm.
I thought that was Robert Downey Jr.'s voice, but I'm not sure if it was or not. What did y'all think about that?
I didn't think it was his voice. I actually did think it was Chris Hemsworth with Thor, because there is one
Oh no,
part in it.
he is. He is coming back. Yeah, he's a part of
Okay.
it.
Well,
Yeah,
you had
Chris Evans is the one that isn't.
oh, you initially said Chris Hemsworth, but that's okay.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's Robert Downey. It doesn't have the same kind of inflection as Robert Downey. I could be wrong, but I love the trailer. I know I shared it with you guys as soon as I saw it, and I'm not one for, like, I didn't watch Invincible. It's not that I don't like animated shows. I don't know, that one didn't speak to me. But this one I'm really excited about, with the whole concept of, like, spoiler for everyone who has not watched it, but like, had the missile not blown up in front of Tony, had someone come in and toss it out into, away from him, like, how would all that look and played out for his life? You know what I'm saying? Like, that would have been just really cool to think about.
So Justin, I have a thing. Like, what if this What If show like correlates to the real MCU from all this stuff like branching out, and the realities and all these things that are happening could have happened in all those branch realities.
That's a really cool idea. I would love if that were the case. It very well could be.
That'd be, because it would make so much sense.
Bring back Tony Stark.
Yeah, see,
Bring back Natasha.
when I watched that clip initially, I didn't think it was him, but then I listened to it a couple times and I was like, it kind of sounds like Robert Downey Jr. doing like the lines over, but doing them a little bit differently, because the voice is pretty similar. It's like a little bit higher pitched, but
I thought it was him, but if
yeah.
it's not, then it's close enough.
Well, what's crazy is I don't see him credited. Every other actor is credited except for him. Iron Man's not listed, and he's not listed either on IMDb. Now, I'm not saying that's the be all end all of the internet or Marvel by any means, but I don't see it listed right now. So
see, like, and I kind of related to with Red Skull in Endgame. I thought that was Hugo Weaving, but apparently it wasn't. So because the voices sounded, quite damn similar, but not not the same actor, of course. So, Frank, what did you think of the What If trailer?
It looked good. It looked good. Seeing Black Panther as a Ravager was kind of different, um, but it added shock value. If you're a hardcore Marvel fan, and you see Killmonger saving an Iron Man, and all these different nuances that's not in the regular timeline.
Peggy Carter
Yes.
as Captain Carter.
Yeah, I mean, George brought up a good point, man. What if this is a
Mhm.
result of like the timeline's fucking up, and one of the timelines is an animated timeline. So
The last thing I'll say about What If. So we do know the first episode, it is the Captain Carter episode, and that is what would have happened if Peggy Carter and not Steve Rogers took the super soldier serum at the start of World War II. Brittany, how can people find us on social media?
Search The Watchers in the Basement on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that notification bell, leave a like and a comment, and we'll get back to you, of course, in the comments all across our platforms. And also, if you are not into video podcasts, we do have audio podcasts available to you thanks to anchor.fm. I'm going to say that one more time, anchor.fm, because I said F really weird. But we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Last but not least, help spread the word about the Watchers in the Basement by using hashtag Watchers Basement on social media. And, word of mouth always works as well. And I'm looking forward to continuing our series with Frank and George on Gangs of London. If you haven't checked that out, you can't, because it's not going to premiere until next week. That's right. We're going to take a short hiatus from MCU until What If comes on. But in the meantime, you can check out our episodes of Gangs of London on here on YouTube, as well as our audio podcast platforms.
Thanks, Brittany. So for Brittany, for George, for Frank, this is Justin saying we'll see you next time.